everyone, and welcome to the Power Platform Show. Today we have Hamish Sheild with us, who's going to talk about his journey to becoming a Dynamics citizen developer from being a traditional Dynamics consultant, and then really how he's pivoted also into the Power Platform and starting a fresh new practice, heavily based around Center of Excellence and training customers up and how to roll out a Center of Excellence within their business. I love it. It's a great chat. I really enjoyed it with him. Full show notes for this episode. We do mention a lot of resources, so check them out. They're at nz365guy.com/186. Now let's get on with the show. Hamish Sheild, welcome to the Power Platform Show. How's it going today?
Good, thanks, Mark. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good. Good to get another Kiwi on the show. As in, you are a Kiwi or are you English? Now I'm confused. You are Kiwi, right?
No, I am Kiwi. I don't know if people mistake me for English sometimes, but definitely a Kiwi, yeah.
I knew you'd done some time in the UK, right? Similar to me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
I've spent a bit of time over there.
Yeah. I can clearly hear that in your accent that you're Kiwi, so that is quite clear. So all good. So good to have you on the show. And I really want to kind of unpack, you wear this brand, Dynamics Citizen Developer. I find that very interesting that you've taken, what we've seen growing in the Power Platform space, and you're using that also in the Dynamics space. So let's drill into that. And I understand you've recently gone independent and starting your own thing. So let's talk a bit about that. And let's just see where it goes. But before we get underway, tell us a bit about yourself. What's your origin story?
My origin story, so yeah, I'm a Kiwi, as we've found out and confirmed, and I live in Auckland, so I guess basically what I call myself now is a Power Platform or Dynamics 365 consultant, and I've been in that, the Dynamics CRM world for about 10 years now.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And so, as you said, currently what I'm doing is I'm working on my own startup called Uprising, and which is kind of more based around the Power Platform rather than Dynamics 365 itself.
Okay.
And in terms of what I've been doing, recently I've been trying to get more involved in things like the New Zealand Dynamics and Power Platform communities as well.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot out of them over the years, and it's time for me to give back. So, helping out with the Dynamics 365 user group in Auckland and the 365 Saturday events. And as you say, I've got a blog as well under the Dynamics Citizen Developer brand, which we'll chat about. Yeah, and then I guess in terms of me personally, I've got a wife and 2 kids, and so my kids are very little still. They're only 3 and 1, so a lot of my life is spent looking after them. And before I decided to do a switch to go out on my own, I did do 6 months stay-at-home dad, which was interesting with my 2 kids while my wife went back to work. So
wow,
it's been an interesting last year for me in this space.
That does sound really interesting. And let's talk a bit about 6 months as a stay-at-home dad. Like, what was that like? And was it on your second child, or being that you got 2, I assume it was?
That's right, yeah, it was the second child. So thank God the first one still went to daycare, and so I just had one at home with me full time. It was a really good experience in that I don't think dads really understand what it's like to stay, for a mum to stay at home with the kids all day long until you actually are doing it yourself. And yeah, your patience are tested, and just the monotonous, like day in, day out, it's the same thing every day. And even when you get to the weekend, usually you go to work during the week, and the weekend's something different, right? But it's not. It's just the same. It's the same for like 6 months. So I found that quite difficult. But there's huge benefits in things like the bond with my kids is now way stronger than it was, and especially with my son. The bond we've developed has become a lot stronger since I was stay-at-home dad. So highly recommend it to anyone who is thinking about it. It's a lot more common these days, and it's a really cool experience, really nice.
How did you deal, and I know this is kind of like not the main thing, but I always like, learning on these shows myself. How did you handle that monotonous side of things for 6 months? How did you kind of structure your day? Did you use any of the skills you'd use as a consultant in the last 10 years? Because to apply to running your day-to-day activities at home as a dad like that?
Yeah, I think, as a consultant, you're just used to juggling multiple projects and multiple things at once. And so it was quite similar in that you had limited time to myself. And so I'd have, an hour or 2 kind of over lunchtime while my daughter was sleeping. And so I would take advantage of that and just cram as much as I could into. And that's when I started building my business Uprising. And so just doing the little mundane things like trying to think of a name and setting up bank accounts, and I'm visiting the lawyers and those types of things. So I managed to have something that was not orientated around the children, which is really good. I think it kind of keeps me sane. Otherwise, I think if you don't have a little hobby or something to keep your adult mind going, yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I think of myself in this situation. If I'm in that situation, again in the future, I would systematize everything based on, what I would do in, my professional life is very much systems. And I know that, or planning. And the thing is, what I'm learning is about planning is, what you're proposing is going to happen. It doesn't mean that is actually what happens, right? Just like any project, you can have, a velocity that you're going to, a burn rate. You can have your sprints, but of course, like Mike Tyson said, it's all fine and good until, you get smacked in the face or hit in the nose type thing. So did you do that? Did you plan how your days would run to kind of make sure you got all those home chores done and all that time with your daughter was kind of planned out? Or was it just, you just, ran with it for 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, I thought I could have it all planned out because you don't realize what it's like. And day to day, you just wonder, like, where has the time gone? It's just by the time you hang out with your daughter and feed her and bath and change nappies and all that sort of thing, and then you go out and do something, and then you got washing, and I actually did the full stay-at-home dad, like
Yeah, I love it.
washing, cooking dinners, cleaning, all that sort of thing as well. So by the time you do all that, you don't actually have a lot of spare time, and so I learned pretty quickly that you can't really kind of set a deadline and say by the end of the week I want such and such done, and then be disappointed when you don't get it done, because chances are it wasn't going to happen. I mean, if your daughter's sick or anything like that, it just throws everything out the window, and yeah, you get used to being flexible and not having a plan so much. And I think for me that was a bit of a learning curve. I like to be very structured and have a plan and stick to the plan. So it was a learning curve for me, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you give you a new level of respect for your wife and what she went first time around?
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely, without a doubt. Stay-at-home mums do an amazing job, and full amount of respect, and to the point where I have my friends, friends of friends and stuff asking, saying, "Can you please tell my husband what it's really like to be at home because he doesn't believe me," type thing, and so I could. Yeah, wow. It's good to have that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. So you spent some time in the UK. How did your career take you over there? What did you kind of do there before, and what led you back to New Zealand?
Yeah, so I guess like a typical Kiwi, I just wanted to do my way and get out and see the world. And so it was my kind of late 20s. A few of my friends and I, we did a 12-month trip around South America and Canada. And so I took a year off work and then arrived in the UK in the middle of 2008, so middle of the GFC, which was not a good time to find jobs. And I'd literally blown all my savings on my traveling. So it was a tough time. So you did the usual, sleep on the floor of my friend's flat in London for, I think it was 4 months until I found a job. It was actually really tough, but I was lucky. I got a job with a telecommunications company out in Reading, of all places, which is actually near Microsoft over there, and they were putting in Dynamics CRM4, and so that was my job, was to help implement that and configure it. And so that's how I fell into Dynamics, essentially. And then I ended up working for a consultancy company called 2E2, which subsequently aren't around anymore. But we worked a lot in the public sector over there, and one of the projects I did was for Newham Borough Council, and that was on CRM 2011. And so in those days, I was a developer, and I was developing plugins and JavaScript to customize the system. And we also did I call it fun, but a Silverlight control, which was like basically Dynamics 365's kind of global search that exists now, but we made a full custom Silverlight thing, and it was absolute pain, but good learning curve, and I'm kind of glad Silverlight's not around anymore.
Did you read David Yak's book on Silverlight?
No, I didn't. Maybe I should have.
Yeah. Well, David Yak, is an MVP in the BizApp space, and I'm pretty sure his first book, and he's written many, was on Silverlight. But of course, that's one of those technologies that have gone by the by.
Well, that's right, and it was quite fun. Funny reflecting on that in terms of the amount of custom code that you needed to put into Dynamics back then, and what you can do now, in terms of this whole citizen developer thing. It's it's day and night, the products really, for me anyway.
Totally, right? So you landed this project in Reading in CRM4. Why have you stuck with it? What made you really carve out a career for your space over 10 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess in the early days, especially kind of through CRM 2013, CRM 2011, where I thought, am I pigeonholing myself into this one product? And if I wanted to branch out or get a job in a different, technology, am I backing myself into a corner? But then as the products evolved and, I think they're kind of familiar when it switched over to Dynamics 365. And ever since then, it's amazing. And I'm so glad I've stayed with it. Yeah, I love using Dynamics and the Power Platform now and what you can do with it. And I think at the moment, if you are a Dynamics 365 consultant, you've just got endless opportunities for jobs and for work. And yeah, really happy now that I've specialized in a product like this.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd love to question you a bit about, particularly the New Zealand market. I'm constantly hit up on LinkedIn for, can you get me a job in New Zealand? I see you've moved back to New Zealand. Can you get me a job and stuff? And so I've got no idea what's going on in the market here in New Zealand. I've been gone for 7 years myself. But let's just put that to one side for a moment, because you raised something interesting there about pigeonholing yourself. You're worried that you're going to get pigeonholed. And that's very similar to my story. In fact, I had consultants as a business advisors say to me when I had my business in New Zealand, you're crazy, just using Microsoft only technologies. Why don't you, look at some of the other CRMs out there? What happens if Microsoft goes bust? And of course, ignorance, right? On behalf of that person talking to me. But, for my 16 years, I'm like, wow, I'm so pleased I just stuck with Dynamics for this massive journey, right? From CRM 1.2 for me. And I have people now, what do I focus on? Which technologies am I at risk? If I just focus, for example, on Power Automate, is that a career limiting move? Do I need to be much more broader? Do I need to, learn the F&O side of things? Do I need to learn field service? Do I need to learn, all these other pieces? What's your advice?
Yeah, I think, this is just in my personal opinion, but I think you need to ground yourself in something. So, I come from a Dynamics 365 customer engagement background, so the CRM side. I've never thought of having to learn F&O or Business Central or anything like that. I think there's enough scope and work and enough things you can do with Dynamics 365 by itself if you wanted to. I also believe that now we've got the Power Platform, you've really got to understand Power Automate, Canvas Power Apps as well, and AI Builder and the other things that complement Dynamics 365 in the Power Platform, because I think it's where you can come up with some really, creative and innovative solutions through just configuring things with the Power Platform to enhance Dynamics and give it a better experience. But, and that in itself is enough. And I think I've also noticed as the way Dynamics is going at the moment, I've almost kind of comparing it to, say, like, the old AX consultants or where they used to kind of take just a module of AX each and they'd specialize in one of those, right? And I can kind of see that happening in Dynamics now, where you have a field service specialist and you have a sales specialist and a customer service specialist. I think you could even get down to that level and become that specialist person in that technology. But I think where also it's really key is become a specialist in the business processes and the business side around all of that. And I know people have made a really good name for themselves by just specializing in a certain part of the product, just like marketing or something like that, and they've done really well out of it. And there seems to be enough work going around that I wouldn't be too afraid. And I think if you do specialize in a certain module, say like marketing, and you get to understand the business side of all of that, you could actually transfer across to a different product if Dynamics died, right? So yeah, there's a lot of options there, and I think there's probably a whole bunch of opinions on that too, I'd say.
Yeah, but it's good hearing yours. It's good hearing yours. Dynamics Citizen Developer is kind of the brand you go under, right? If I look at your website, it's dynamiccitizendeveloper.com. It's mentioned on LinkedIn. And then if I jump over to YouTube, you've got this amazing YouTube channel where you've done a heap of videos. And once again, you're very strong on this Dynamics Citizen Developer. Unpack for that for me. How did it come about? And what do you mean by a Dynamics Citizen Developer?
Yeah, so I think to start off with, I came from a development background. So I'm quite technical at heart. But over the years, I've moved away from the development side of things, and I haven't written code for probably 5 or 6 years now. Really, probably don't even have the patience for it, to be honest. And so I really identify with the citizen developer thing, where I'm still able to be slightly technical, and I can still go out and build solutions that solve business problems, and I can do it without code, and I can do it really quickly. And I think, for me, that's kind of my happy space, really. I don't have to, write code or debug it or anything like that and get into the depths of the code syntax and all that sort of thing. And so I really enjoy that. And so where this kind of Dynamics citizen developer brand, I guess, came from was that, my background is Dynamics, and it was kind of at the time when, the Power Platform was really taking off, and so was the term citizen developer. And so I guess basically when I'm doing a Dynamics implementation, I think my last few I've been able to do without having any custom code whatsoever. So you are being a citizen developer implementing Dynamics basically. And so that's kind of, I guess what I mean, with that term. Yeah.
So now within that, people might associate more from a model-driven point of view as opposed to a Canvas app point of view. Are you more with that Dynamics background on the model-driven side of things, or how much have you gone out of your way to really learn where Canvas comes into the mix?
Yeah, so I mean, model-driven is definitely my sweet spot. It's what I know, and it's what we've worked for whatever 10 years. It's the same database as it's been since the early days of CRM. But I love the idea of Canvas apps, and I'm really working towards, I guess, picking up that platform as much as I can, because I can see there's huge amount of potential for Canvas apps to make Dynamics 365 or model-driven apps, the UI and the UX, so much better for users. And so, over the years, as being a Dynamics consultant, a lot of customers have complained to me about the UX of Dynamics is pretty terrible. I mean, it's getting better with the unified user interface, but common complaints is that it's kind of clunky to use. There's a lot of clicks to get somewhere, and a lot of steps, for people to remember. And so I think there's a space for Canvas apps where, if you've got someone who does a certain job and they want to do it quickly, then you can create a Canvas app over top of Dynamics to make the interaction really quick and easy. And so I've been doing a bit of work with embedded Canvas apps recently. So an example of that is we've got a client who, you're not, I guess, technically that savvy, to put it simply. And so they were struggling with the timeline control on a model-driven app. And so what we did was we actually ended up replacing that with an embedded Canvas app, which simplified it right down and took away all the little options and filters and all that sort of thing. They didn't want any of that. And basically it just displayed to them exactly what they wanted to see. And then we also put above the timeline a little box where they could type their notes, and then a little drop down to tag what type of note it was. Super, super simple. And that's all they wanted. And that made their lives a lot easier and a lot, I guess, more stress-free in terms of having to remember where everything is. They found that really simple. So there's a whole lot of opportunity there with Canvas apps, I think. And as time goes on, I'll be, doing more and more of that for sure.
Yeah, I like that, right? The ability to simplify the interface. But I tell you what, the new modern UI, that we're now working with, that's a pretty slick interface. I'm finding it's like massively responsive. And of course, now we've got PCF in the mix. Where do you see that come into play? Like particularly for the citizen developer, because obviously PCF is a high, this code, right? It's hardcore coding. Where do you see PCF fitting into the development land from a citizen point of view?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I would love to get into PCF, but I just think it's code, right? And I've
Totally
really given that up, to be honest. But I think there's a huge amount of scope for PCF in terms of little kind of controls and stuff to put on the forms to make it easier. And I was discussing with AK, who I think you had on the MVP show recently.
From Wellington?
Yeah, from Wellington. Yeah, exactly. I said to him, well, why would I do a PCF, over an embedded Canvas app? I don't really understand. And so there's a whole lot of reasons around. I think PCF it's a lot faster. You can actually do a lot more, and they can control a lot better. There's definitely a time and place for both things. And for me, as a citizen developer, if I was to get into PCF, I'd probably outsource it to someone else to build for me. Really, this is kind of the way I see it: is that embedded Canvas apps will probably get you so far, and then you'll probably hit some limitations. And they're probably quite good for prototyping. But if you were kind of getting really serious about this control, you'd probably want to make that into a PCF eventually, I'd say, depending on what it was. I do kind of sometimes think as Canvas apps, it's a great prototyping tool, great to prove what's possible. But when you hit kind of cliffs, you then go into PCF in terms of embedded stuff. Yeah,
agreed. We've heard a lot about citizen developers probably over the last 2 years. Microsoft talked a lot about educate the market, and I heard a lot of, squeaks, if you like, come from the pro dev side of the house going, do we have a career in the space? And then along comes PCF and you go, oh my gosh, absolutely. The journey for a pro dev developer is amazing, as in there's so much they can do, but it really gets the kind of, the plumbing out of the way, that stuff, the boring stuff that was done over and over on projects, right, to a degree, and allows them to really dev some really super sexy interfaces and stuff with that PCF control. Of course, they're making it available to citizen developers to deploy, implement, make part of their apps, that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's awesome for the pro devs. Yeah, I've heard the same kind of complaints and worries from pro devs about, what am I going to do with the Power Platform? But I think there's always going to be something else more technically advanced that you can't do with the Power Platform, and you can't do everything, right? And so there's always something more technical that they can do. And even, the Power Platform is kind of sold as this, citizen developer can go pick it up and create a Power App, Canvas Power App really easily. I mean, truth behind it is actually it's still quite, it's a lot of learning and it's quite hard. And I think you could also have pro devs who also kind of flick more into the citizen developer, where they are just using configuration tools to create apps, because you've still got to have a really good, especially with CDS, really good understanding of databases, how data is structured, how it's related. And I find people who don't have that kind of database background and try to be a citizen developer, they do struggle with how CDS works and that sort of thing. So yeah, I still think there's nothing to be worried about if you're a pro dev. There's heaps of stuff out there to do.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you transition from Dynamics 365 to the Power Platform? I know folks that are saying, hey, I'm sticking with Dynamics 365 sales, Dynamics 365 customer service, field service, that type of thing. I'm not going to go down this whole new path. You've obviously made a conscious decision to transition. What's been that journey like?
Yeah, it's been, not difficult. I actually really enjoy, creating Canvas apps. I really enjoy playing with AI Builder. I quite like the new stuff that's coming out and just giving a test and see what it can do. So I spend kind of a bit of my personal time just playing around with it because I just actually enjoy it. And so, but then I've also seen the, Power Automate, while, for example, is not quite equivalent with Dynamics Workflow, there's so many things it can do that Dynamics Workflow can't do in terms of, connecting out to different systems and all sorts of things. And so I kind of think if you're doing Dynamics these days and you're going to be a pure Dynamics person, but you're not considering Canvas apps or Power Automate or any of the Power Platform, I think, this is what I think, but you're probably a little naive. I think you could make your Dynamics solution so much better by using the Power Platform. And so for me, I've just kind of got into it just through a matter of interest. And for me, this is where I think the future's going. And yeah, I guess the fact that I enjoy it is kind of what's pushed me that way.
Yeah. Just before we pivot off, did you spend more of your time doing what I call vanilla-based Dynamics implementations over your career to date? Or were they more platform-based? In other words, what we'd formerly call XRM type implementations, now we'd call a Power Platform implementation, where you didn't really use any of the Dynamics, finished apps, and you just went straight into using the platform to build a line of business application for a customer.
Yeah, I think it's been a bit of a mixture of both. Probably, I'd say 60-70% would be, Dynamics being used what it's meant to be used for in terms of, if it's a sales or service or project service, for example. So, but then we've also done complete kind of XRM type projects, especially in the UK. Yeah, they definitely use it. With the projects I did over there was kind of an XRM based platform. So, I think another thing that kind of attracts me to the Power Platform is, I've been doing Dynamics for so long now. I've done so many sales and service implementations. It's not funny, and you do kind of get a bit sick of it after a while, and you want to do something a bit more creative and innovative. And so that's another draw card for me for the Power Platform itself.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So tell me, Uprising, tell me, how did that come about? Why have you chosen to, go out on your own? You had a nice, safe, secure job. What enters your mind to go and start a startup, after 10 years of working in Dynamics?
Yeah, so, throughout my career, I've just, I've kind of changed roles constantly. I kind of to be a person who likes to have a bit of a challenge and something new. And so, I started out as a developer, then went into functional consulting and kind of solution architecture, then started leading a team, and then I was practice manager at Fusion 5 for a while. And so I got to a point where, especially as a practice manager, all I really was doing was just managing the team. And I really like helping people, and that was fine. But I also, love getting involved in the solutions and helping, customers add value to their business, and that solutions part of it is what I was really missing. And I am an engineer at heart, so I actually did engineering at university, and so I love to solve problems and I love to build stuff, and so I thought I just wanted to kind of come back to that, and that's why I thought I'd go out my own and give it a go, but kind of come back to that kind of solution-based consulting as well, and and having my kind of own values and own vision and that sort of thing is quite important to me as well.
So tell me a bit about, your vision for the company. I know it's early days, but tell us, in a perfect world, where do you see yourself in, 3 to 5 years with Uprising?
Yeah, so for me, Uprising, I'm trying to try something a little bit different, and so I am kind of branching off from Dynamics, and I'll probably still do some Dynamics, but I'm trying to be more kind of pure Power Platform and have a consultancy kind of based on enablement. So I guess what I mean by that is that helping organizations take on the Power Platform, and what strategies do they do to do that, teaching them how to design and build Power Apps, administration, governance, essentially kind of helping customers form a center of excellence around the Power Platform. So it's a bit different from pure implementation is kind of what I'm used to. It's more around empowering people with the Power Platform, and that kind of falls into that, again, this whole citizen developer thing, where I think it was last year at Inspire, Satya Nadella said there was something like 500 million apps
Correct, yeah.
have to be created in the next 5 years. And then also, I don't know if you saw this, but I saw Donna Sarkar at Microsoft on Monday, and she was talking about how we're currently 1 million apps in deficit at the moment. So I don't know how they measure any of this, but basically, I guess the crux of it is that there's apps to be built and technology to be built, right? And there's just not enough pro devs or consultants in the world to do it all. And so we need to build up and empower people to become citizen developers. And so that's kind of what I guess Uprising is all about, is to rise the apps, we need to help people and get people to build them. And so that's kind of what I'm going to focus on. And we'll see how that goes. It may not fly with people. People might want to pay for that, but we'll see. It's just I'm experimenting at the moment. I guess it's very much a test and see what happens type thing.
So, just in what you described there to me about enablement, about putting governance and administration in place for organizations, establishing a center of excellence, this is really down the path of probably more consulting in my mind. Would that sound right? You're going to go into an organization, let's say they're deciding, we're going to commit to the Power Platform. We might have, internally 150 different, applications that do something in the organization. Might have come from multiple vendors over time, or they might just have a heap of paper-based processes, and they're wanting to go on a digital cultural journey, right? They want to change their organization to go digital, really what we've been talking about for some years with digital transformation. Are you going to go in and kind of help them set up their center of excellence, identify their citizen developers, identify the first apps, to be tackled? Is that what you're talking about with Uprising?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly it. So first of all, educating them about the Power Platform and what it's possible of doing, and then I see myself, it's what I've been doing recently, is going in with a customer, and you can maybe do a hackathon or a workshop for a day.
Love
and
it.
We actually build out an app, and we'll before that, we'll go through what are their business challenges, what are their paper processes, what are they having trouble with, what do they want to digitize, or so we kind of identify that first, and then go ahead and create an app with them in a kind of a hackathon type style. So you're building something for them, but you're also training and upskilling them at the same time. And then I think those app in a day kind of workshops, that sort of style has been really popular recently. And what it does is that you're training people, but more importantly, it kind of sparks ideas in people's heads around how they can use technology to make their work life better. How do they add value back into the business? And so that's what I'm all about. Yeah, it's definitely more of a consulting gig rather than developing apps for people. I think it's the whole thing, teach a man to fish,
totally
type thing, rather than giving them the fish up front. So
yeah, I definitely think based on what you've said so far, you're tackling some greenfield opportunities or some blue ocean opportunities there, where the traditional Microsoft partner, gold, silver, that type of thing, are more the model of, hey, tell us what you want, we'll build it for you. Rather, you're going in and saying, hey, how do we enable digital transformation with an organization. We've got a whole bunch of software tool sets here. Let me show you the art of the possible. And then, hey, I'm going to hold your hand all the way on that journey. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, you've hit it on the head. Yeah, exactly. Very much that, and yeah, teaching them how to take all this on, and then I think the other kind of big part of that, and where companies, I hear companies are a bit afraid of the Power Platform, is that, how do we make it secure? How do we know what's going on? If we just let citizen developers loose in this platform, what's going to happen? Are we going to end up with kind of access type databases, or Excel spreadsheets everywhere that no one knows where the data is? Whereas the Power Platform actually has the ability to monitor all of that, and you can build your own tools for governing, and protecting everything. And so actually, it's a hell of a lot more secure than your random Excel spreadsheet sitting on someone's laptop, or if they go and get a complete third-party product they subscribe to that's not Microsoft, they can't monitor any of that. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions around the Power Platform in terms of it's not safe and you can't control it. You definitely can, but you just need to know how, and I think there's a need out there to help companies with that as well.
Have you looked at any of the COE starter kit that Microsoft has released? They've got a couple of solution packages that light up a range of admin consoles so you can see what's going on in the organization, make sure you get DLP, all that type of stuff in place?
Yeah, that's right. I have looked at that, and it's part of starting this business. I would like to create my own IP as well, and so better either sell or give away IP. And I think I've looked at the Centre of Excellence starter kit. It's a really good base, and kind of shows you what is possible with all of that. So definitely that will be kind of part of what I do with customers is get that in there, and because then they can see straight away what is possible, and then extend that further to kind of to their particular business needs and strategies.
Yeah. So if I was to ask you, what would your perfect customer look like for Uprising? So kind of put out of your head to one side, your traditional, what you've done in the past. But for Uprising, what would that client profile, what type of company would it be? What would you be looking for to go, this is the right mix, this is the type of client I want to take on?
Yeah, ideally I like to think I'd be a little bit picky with clients in terms of who I work with, and I think it's really important, we've got the, matching kind of cultures and approaches to thing, in that they, wanting to be innovative, wanting to maybe take a little bit of a risk in terms of the Power Platform is just moving all the time, right? And there's new stuff coming in all the time, and so companies who are kind of having to be a bit more kind of bleeding edge, to put it bluntly, but wanting to also take on this whole kind of citizen developer approach. So they want to empower their people to be able to create their own applications and automations and those types of things. And so the IT team or department in a company are going to have to relinquish a bit of control and take more of a monitoring stance, but also a kind of a nurturing stance, so enabling people and encouraging the business to build apps and those sorts of things. So it's quite a different approach to some of the, the traditional customers, where they come to a partner and go, Microsoft partner, and say, here are my requirements, this is what I want the system to do, you go and build it, and you do it exactly as I tell you, type thing. Whereas it's a customer who wants to come, he's on a journey with me, and let me kind of get inside their business and understand their business and what their challenges are, and I'll help them drive value through digital transformation with the Power Platform. And so they've got to have that kind of forward-thinking mindset, want to be a bit innovative, and want to empower their employees. I think is really key.
Yeah, I like it. In the early days of a startup, you obviously don't necessarily have a track record in this, new space. You're young starting out as a startup. How do you propose, or how are you thinking about creating trust, integrity with your customers, those type of things that's going to get those initial customers to sign on and go on this journey with you? The beauty is, hey, you have a lot of experience around the actual technology bit. So I assume you can establish a good trust, integrity type relationship around the technology, your experience with it, but around this whole concept of building a COE and creating, a business DevOps type environment within a company. How are you thinking about that? So I'm not asking, have you baked it already, but kind of what are you thinking around that space?
Yeah, so, I think, you say trust and integrity, they're massively important these days. And, I think while Uprising is not a known brand at the moment, I haven't even got my website launched or anything like that, and I haven't even started my kind of social media stuff. So it's not well known, to say, but I think myself personally, I think I've got a reasonably good reputation in New Zealand, and I guess I'm kind of known as a kind of safe pair of hands when it comes to as a consultant. But I think in terms of starting out with fresh clients who don't know me that well, one of the things that we're going to be doing at Uprising is taking on a lot of design thinking
Brilliant.
type approaches. And so I think the key to all that is, it's about empathizing with the people and the end users and the business themselves, and really getting to understand the business. And I think it's one of my strengths is that technology is just one part of digital transformation. I think that the people side and your change management and everything around that is far more important than the technology. And so I think through the kind of design, people who know design thinking, those sorts of principles where you empathize and where you do things like prototype, show the product early, the end users to test it early and give feedback, so they're kind of part of that journey as well, I think is all really important. And I think through that process, that design thinking process, you'll very quickly, if you do it right, will very quickly build trust, and they can see that you're delivering value quickly as well. I think that'll pay dividends.
I like it. Now, you mentioned interesting concepts there, design thinking. How did you get involved with design thinking or human-centered design? I see you mentioned empathy there, and empathy is a real key part of design thinking. How did you get involved with that type? Because this is, very much the other side of, making a business like this successful these days. How did you get into it? Design thinking side of things.
I'm not entirely sure. I think it's just through talking with people, and I'm not exactly sure how I got into it. Once I kind of found out about it, I became really interested in it, and got into it in a big way. So I've actually done a couple of the IDOU courses.
Love
I don't know
it.
if you know of IDO.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. So I just recently finished the Design for Strategy course, which I loved, and it's been really good in terms of thinking of my strategy for my own business.
I love it.
And then also using those design thinking practices for clients as well. But I think what really attracts me is just it is that human centeredness of it all. It's about what the end user of your product or the thing that you're designing, what do they really, really need? And sometimes I think in the past, software implementations have been more focused on what do the managers and the executive need in terms of reporting out of the system, and not really focusing on who's actually going to be using it, who's going to be inputting the data, who's processing the data. There's not a lot of focus on that, and that's where you find that people aren't adopting the system well, and then it kind of actually spells out that the executives and the management aren't getting the results that they need. And so I think you've actually got to turn it all on its head, and you've got to start with the end users, and that's what it's one of the design thinking principles.
I love it.
And I think what I like about design thinking is it kind of sounds quite fluffy and all about the people, but it's actually a balance, and it makes sure there's a balance between being human centered, but also making sure there's value being added
totally
as well. And that mixture is 50-50, right? It's not all about just making people feel nice.
So true.
Without adding value into the organization.
Yeah. Listen, if you could send me the links to those training courses you've done, I'll put them up in the show notes so people can take a look. Have you looked at Design Kit from IDEO as well?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I have. So I do use some of their exercises in my workshops as well.
Love it.
Empathy maps and customer journey mapping, doing things like observing, so spending a day in the life of someone. So, for example, I just went out with a sales rep for a day the other day and sat in the car where we went and visited clients and saw how they worked remotely, which was, when you're given requirements from a customer about, I need, say, an app to help our salespeople while they're out on the road, and they give you the requirements, you get a totally different point of view when you actually sit with that person, actually go and, be in their shoes and spend a day in the life with them, and that's where you get the true requirements is from there, what they actually need at the end of the day, rather than what's been specified by someone else.
Yeah. What I like, about the design kit side of things is that folks can get out there and start using it now. Just like, they teach, what you did, that ride along, observe behavior, and then it kind of gives you a much stronger point of, from an empathy point of view, and then how you can translate that. And I love with design, I don't know if you knew, but Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation actually funded a lot of that development of Design Kit, that it would be open sourced and made available, those resources at no cost, so that, really there's no barrier for people to get involved and use these tools.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know if you know, there's also, somehow through that Design Kit website, I also found there are some free design thinking courses as well.
That's right.
Where It's around designing, I guess, solutions for kind of community-based
Yeah.
things. And they've done some amazing stuff. And so, yeah, it's really inspiring, I think, reading through all that content. And it's not that hard. I mean, they kind of give you kind of quite well set out steps to go through, and you just got to be a bit creative and be a bit flexible. And I really enjoy it. I like the process. I find fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Man, our time, we've cranked through the time. What's your take on the New Zealand market? Just once again, this is probably more for my own interest, but a few listeners might find it interesting. What's your take on the partner ecosystem in New Zealand at the moment and the opportunity for people to work in the Power Platform Dynamics space as from a career perspective?
Yeah, so just from my perspective, I mean, I've been, until recently going out on my own, I'd been with the same partner the same team for 7 years. So I haven't kind of jumped between partners. I'm not, so it's only kind of from one point of view. But at the moment, I understand that all the partners are super busy in the dynamic space and, even in the Microsoft space in the whole. And there is a real need for talent and consultants. And I think it's definitely a consultants market at the moment. Your consultants are being hired from overseas to come into New Zealand, and that's happening a lot at the moment. So anyone listening to this podcast, and if you're a Power Platform or Dynamics consultant and you want to live in New Zealand, there's a huge amount of opportunity here. You probably just need to reach out to one of the partners or recruitment agents, and I'm sure you'd pick up a job really quickly. This kind of goes back to the point where Don Osaka said that we're behind app development by 100 million apps, and I mean, certainly New Zealand, it feels like it. It seems to be a lot of work, and a lot of companies are looking to get on this digital transformation bandwagon, and Microsoft seems to be a good tool of choice for it all. Yeah, I think the New Zealand market's really positive at the moment.
Epic.
Plenty of work. Yeah.
Mate, you're starting to inspire me to start a new practice. Talk like this.
Get into it, yeah.
Okay, that aside, are you ready for some quick fire questions now? Put you on the spot.
Sure.
Okay, here you go. First one, would you rather win a Grammy or an Oscar?
Let's go Oscar, I think.
Nice. Yeah. I think the Oscar sounds like the top of the tree, right? How do you get in the way of your own success?
Oh, I think sometimes I get like a little too focused on things. So, I'll be, building a power app or a flow or something, and then, kind of get stuck in it, and then next thing I know, a couple of hours have gone by and I've not even noticed the time. So for me, prioritizing and not getting stuck on the fun stuff is hard at times, but yeah, there's definitely a bit of that.
Makes sense. If you could have any one fictional character as your friend, who would you choose and why?
One fictional character?
Yeah,
it's super hard. I think someone like Batman or someone.
Yeah, okay.
He's got all the tech toys and everything, but does good for people. He's just a normal human being after all.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Who was your first love and when?
My first love.
How young were you?
Yeah, I won't name names, but
no, okay, fair enough.
I was probably late teens, early 20s. Yeah, I was probably a late bloomer in that respect. And that was at university. So I went to university in Canterbury.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was a long time ago.
Very nice, very nice. If you could create one holiday, what would you create? One
holiday. So I'm really into kite surfing. It's one of my hobbies, and I would love it. But it's not so good for family and kids, because wherever you kite surfing, it's always windy on the beach, and so a windy day at the beach is not fun for the kids or the wife. And so I'd love this place. If there's a place in the world where I could go on a holiday, or I could go kite surfing, but then the kids and the wife could be on the beach at the same time, but be sheltered. That would kind of be the dream, I think. Dream holiday.
I like it. Last one for you. Who's someone you really admire?
Who really admire? Well, it's, I guess, probably quite common, but I think Satya Nadella, for me, is super inspiring. Just the way he's turned around the Microsoft culture from what it was, when he started to now. It's just, it's almost kind of like a different company, we work with as a partner. And just talking to people who work for Microsoft and the way that things that they have KPIs on and stuff, and nothing to do with financials or anything like that. It's all around sharing knowledge and helping each other out in the business. And then you still see the stock price to skyrocket, and they're doing so well financially, but they're not even trying for the financials, right? It's all about company culture and things like. I think he's such an inspiring man, and it would be kind of amazing to kind of have a little bit of the talent he's got in terms of changing culture and driving that.
Excellent. Who would you recommend as a guest for the show in the future?
So for the show, top of my head, I would, and you probably know these two people quite well actually, but Rami Munla or Guyan Pereira.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is that I spent quite a lot of time with them last year organising the Dynamics 365 Saturday events in New Zealand. And so got to know each other pretty well. And they've always got a lot of good chat to have around, the Dynamics and Power Platform, and then also what's going on in the community. And between the two of them, they pretty much know everyone in the community. So they're always good to talk to if you want to have a chat about the Power Platform subject and, also what's going on in the New Zealand market. Have great insights.
I like it. Yeah, well, Guy in Prayer is my nephew, so it shouldn't be too hard reaching out to him. And of course, I know Rami well in Wellington, but yeah, good suggestions. I like it. Let's see what we can do. Hamish, it's been great to have you on the show. Where can people find you online if they want to follow what you're doing? Maybe give you a hot tip on a kite surfing spot where you can take the family as well.
So they can find me on LinkedIn under Hamish Sheild, and that's Sheild. It's spelt different from the dictionary, which is annoying. And also on Twitter as well. So I think it's hamish.shield is my handle. At Twitter is probably the best way to get hold of me. The Uprising website's not up yet, so don't. If you go there, you're going to have a landing page which says coming soon. So eventually that'll reach me there as well.
Hey, thanks again for joining us today on the Power Platform Show. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/186. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as NZ365 Guy, or for the Americans, NZ365 Guy, just throwing that out there. But tell me, if you're liking the show, if you're enjoying the content we're having on there, or if you've got ideas, please let me know. Hit me up on LinkedIn Messenger, and I'd love to hear from you. Anyhow, bye for now.